Frazer, and I'm the Carrier Development Director for Whistl. I head up the international commercial team here. And over the next sort of 25 minutes or so, I want to discuss how COVID, Brexit, and IOS or IOSS has caused and is still causing us issues and is putting up barriers to trade. And it's made it harder for you to trade and is continuing to do so. But hopefully I can help you out with that. I'll explain how at Whistl we operate, how we use a multi-carrier platform, which basically means we use more than one carrier and we can move between carriers at a fair pace, and how we can help you overcome these obstacles to trade and help you in that respect. So if we go to slide 2, the perfect storm, it's a phrase that's used perhaps too often at the moment, but it really describes where we're at the moment. We've got Brexit, which obviously happened at the beginning of this year, or more accurately, just at the end of last year. COVID we've had for 19 months. IOSS, or the Import One-Stop Shop, started on the 1st of July. We've got a driver shortage and we've got labour shortages, and we've also got rising costs. So I want to briefly discuss how you choose the right carrier, because as somebody said at a previous presentation that I saw this morning, delivery is everything. If you don't get your goods delivered internationally, then you don't have anything. You don't get your money, you don't get your profit, and you have dissatisfied customers that won't come back again. Now, it very much depends on what stage of development you're at when you're choosing your carriers and where your business is at. You may think that trading internationally is time consuming and that you're remaining with your UK deliveries. It may be time consuming, especially when you don't understand it at the beginning, but we can help you through that. Some people think it's confusing, and yes, it can be. It can be costly, yes, but we can help you through all of that so that you can actually move your goods internationally at a competitive price. And I'll talk you through this very briefly through this presentation. So if we go on to slide 3, depending on what stage you're at, is your business a startup or is it established? Have you been going for a number of years? What sort of volumes do you have? What is your product? Where are your current customers? Where are your potential customers? Do you know what your market? You obviously know what your product is, or you should do. Is it low value or is it high end? Are you selling business to consumer, or are you selling to other businesses in, for instance, in Europe or around the world? Do you need global dispatch, or are you looking to sell to a particular country? These are all things that you need to ask and when deciding on your carriers. You're obviously going to look at the cost of those carriers, whether they can deliver next day, in 3 days, in 5 days, or even longer. It's tied to your product. Do you want a tracked product, or is untracked good enough for you? If you've got products that, I don't want to say cheap, but if they are of a low price, then you don't want to use a very expensive delivery system, which will overprice your product to the customer. You're looking for reliability, resilience. Do you need insurance? What's the perception of your product by the customer? If your product is, for instance, a high-end product, you want it delivered probably very quickly, and you probably want it tracked so that the customer has confidence and can see where the item is on the way to them. There are different methods on having your goods delivered. There is, and you may have heard this before, but delivery duty paid, or DDP. Now, delivery duty paid means that your customer is going to receive the goods without any interruption. They will pay, your customer will pay all costs, including any VAT, including any duty, at the point of checkout. And that makes it very simple, very upfront. There are no hidden costs. I'll discuss IOSS a little bit later. Now, there is also delivery duty unpaid, which some people now call DAP, but I won't go there. Most people, I think, call it delivery duty unpaid. What you don't want is to give your customer a shock, so that when the goods arrive in the country of destination, they may get a call, a text, an email saying, your goods have arrived, we want to deliver them, but here's a bill for VAT, could be duty, could be a clearance fee. And your customer may think, wasn't expecting this, I'm not going to accept these, and they come back to you, and you've got one dissatisfied customer. I'll also talk about returns a little bit later on, but that's something that you need to decide upon, on how you want returns, and if you want returns at all. Now, if we go to slide 4, not all carriers are the same. No, we're not. We're all quite different. We all have strengths and weaknesses. We have different services. But the marketplace for logistics or post or parcels or whatever you want to call it in the UK is extremely competitive. And there are a number of competitors within the UK, possibly a higher proportion of competitors in the UK than in most other countries. We have a lot of post offices here who operate out of the UK, and also a lot of express companies who operate out of the UK, and private operators as well. You obviously need to talk to any prospective carriers about what services do they offer. Also ask other users of those carriers to see what their experience is of them. Certain carriers are strong to certain areas. So, for instance, a certain carrier may be good to the USA or to Asia, or possibly to Africa. Where do you want to sell your goods? So you need to find out where those carriers are strong and where they are weak, and therefore use the right one for you. I've mentioned about price. On the whole, tracked is more expensive than untracked for obvious reasons. If your items are, dare I say, if they're low in price, you don't want to have an expensive delivery system. But if your goods are high end, then you could possibly afford, and your customers will accept and perhaps expect, a very reliable and quick delivery system, which includes tracked, and therefore they're prepared to pay that extra. Will the carrier pick up from you, or do you have to drop off at a collection point? Now, a company like Whistl, we will collect from you, but there are minimum volumes to make that worthwhile. What services do they offer to you? We've talked about collections. We've talked about whether you use untracked or tracked. Do you want a proof of delivery? Do you want insurance? Do you want a fast delivery or basically a slower delivery, which will be cheaper? And all of these questions you need to ask. Now, at Whistl, we offer a breadth of services. So we offer domestic services, including mail and parcels. We also offer fulfillment, pick and pack, and call centres in the UK. And for international services, we offer global distribution, so we can deliver to every country in the world for untracked mail and untracked parcels. So we can offer you, I would imagine, anything that you want in terms of delivery of your items. We also do customs clearance near Heathrow for import at the moment, and we plan to expand that to export clearance in the very near future. Now, if you have enough volume, and I come on to this subject of the multi-carrier platform, if you have enough volume of your own, you might be looking at a number of carriers to give you different services. With Whistl and with other companies like Whistl, we actually do that for you. So you can use us, but by you basically share our economies of scale and our purchasing power, and we use a number of carriers to give you those services and to also give you the resilience to get us through these rather difficult times at the moment. So do you look at a specific carrier, you go for one carrier, or do you look at a company like Whistl, where we offer you, as I say, our economies of scale to give you a spread or a multi-carrier platform? Now, if we move on to slide 5, let me give you a little bit of background on Brexit, COVID, and IOSS, and where we've come from and where we've got to. It's been a challenging time, not only for yourselves, but also for the logistics industry. And we've been going through this now for certainly for COVID for 19 months. And we continue to have challenges, let me put it that way. And when COVID first started, which was March of last year, almost overnight, we lost 80% of our air freight capacity as an industry. And because of that, we were all competing for what was a fifth of the availability that we previously had. So there were a certain amount of surcharges which were levied on the movement of mail and parcels around the world. And because of COVID, certain countries basically shut their borders, as you know, and wouldn't accept any parcels or any mail. And certain companies actually stopped collecting or delivering from certain countries, and this was because of issues that they were having with their own network or with their own partners. Excuse me. Now this did change daily. We normally look at to give you an example, we normally look at our routes. We use about 18 different carriers at the moment. Some of them are specialists, but we have a core of about 10 that we use for our global services. And we normally change our routes about once a month. During COVID at the start, we were changing our routes sometimes twice a day because a carrier would stop delivering to a certain country, so we'd have to swap that lane to another carrier to ensure that we were continuing with our service. But also surcharges were changing by the hour, so we'd swap from one carrier to another to try and make sure that we achieved the best price with the best service. Now, on top of this, as you'll know, we had Brexit. Brexit has added a certain amount of complexity, let me put it that way. And we had a lack of notice, as you know, about what was coming to hit us. But it has added additional cost, additional complexity, and to a certain extent, it's added to that capacity issue that we had. I was watching some presentations earlier on and noticed somebody was talking about origin rules. We have to be careful about where the material comes from, where they've been manufactured, and we've obviously had to cope with exports to Europe with VAT and duty, which was something that we hadn't had to deal with previously. IOSS, or import one-stop shop. Now, this is something that is optional, but probably a very good idea to have or use. The EU brought this in on the 1st of July, and the aim was to make importing to the EU simpler. It hasn't. It's caused a certain amount of confusion, and it's also caused some extra cost. But it was to make sure that traders within the EU and those outside the EU were on a level playing field. Everybody was charging VAT, basically. But you have to register for IOSS, which doesn't actually cost you anything. But you need a fiscal representation within the EU. And this can cost you a certain amount of money. There's been lots of questions about who is a fiscal representative, where can I find one? We can certainly recommend a couple of companies who can be your fiscal representative. We don't make anything out of that. We just refer you to a couple of companies who actually a lot of the other carriers are using as well. So they know what they're doing, but there is a cost. And we also noticed that there were initial issues with certain EU countries who weren't ready for this on the 1st of July. And I have to say, there are a few countries who still have issues coping with IOSS, but we are getting through them as an industry and working with these countries and their customs departments and their post offices. But it's been an interesting time for us. And latterly, I turn to something else that is optional, but if you want your goods back and you have paid duty on the outbound or the export, there is a way of doing that, and it's called return goods relief. It's quite easy to do. You register on the HMRC website. It's free, takes you about 10 minutes, and you get a certificate number, and that will help you get your goods back and reclaim any duties or taxes that you've paid on the outbound trip. Now, slide 6. Next slide, please. There we go. So I've mentioned a few times about our multi-carrier platform. I said that we use 18 different carriers. Some of them are specialists, and we use them for certain reasons, certain destinations, and certain products. But we have a core of about 10 different carriers, which we use because we know that certain carriers are good to certain destinations, or they're good with certain products, or they have a good IT system, or they have good relationships with the people who basically deliver your goods to the final mile. So it's very important that we make sure that we're using the right partners throughout the world who have the right transport systems that are resilient, at the best quality, at the best price. And that's what we do, and that's what we sell to you. So we're sharing our expertise, our economies of scale, and our purchasing power to give you that breadth of carriers at a price you can afford, hopefully. So we give you options, but we're also giving you reliability and resilience because, and it's still happening at the moment, if a carrier is having a particular issue or problems or capacity issues with certain destinations, then we will swap to another carrier, and we can do that within 24 hours. And this is where the agile side of it comes in. It's all well and good of having lots of carriers, but if you can't swap between them quickly, then that's going to hold you back. So what we're aiming to do is give you the best service at the best price to mitigate delays, work round those embargoes and surcharges. That's for us to worry about, not for you. All you want off us is a good service at a good price that's reliable and works. The pick and mix that I've mentioned is what we do, or you could do it if you're big enough or you're established enough to have enough volume to give a carrier that will give you the best price. But you have to have a lot of volume for that, and that's what we do. We can also give you a certain amount of advice. Obviously, we are aware and are experts in what we do. What we can't do is give you fiscal advice or tax advice, but we can certainly point you in the right direction. We can hold your hand, let's put it that way, and lead you along the path of this is how we're going to get your goods delivered. If you need tax advice or fiscal advice, these are the people to talk to, and they know exactly what you need. Now, I'm on just before lunch. I've been told that I mustn't run into lunch. Thankfully, I'm before lunch and not after. But I'm finishing with about 5 minutes to go. So hopefully I've shared with you something that's interesting to you. If you have any questions or you think of any questions later on, or you wish to contact me, there's my contact details, and willing to help. And hopefully that was useful to you.